Hey, Ben. There we go. Well, that was kind of embarrassing.
Yeah, what happened?
I joined the happy hour meeting and I was like, where is everyone?
I know it said the host has another meeting, and I was like, which am I supposed to be in that one? What the hell is going on?
Right?
Kicked me out.
It kicked me out too.
What? Oh, I'm sorry. So you guys were in there, but then it kicked you out?
No. I figured like you guys were like too cool for me and you started some whole other Zoom meeting for the meeting that I wasn't invited to. But you're using the same account. Which is fine. I got stuff to do anyway.
You look like a collage, Chris. Like
you look like a projection of yourself on the wall.
I know. That's what happens when all my overhead lights are not connected to my
sweatshirt, Ben.
Oh yeah.
Oh, nice.
I haven't worn it in like 2 months.
Today's cold.
Yeah, it is.
I'm not ready.
Oh man. All right. Well, we're almost there. I'm just trying to get my headset working. Pardon me.
How many attended last meeting? I wasn't here.
50.
15?
No, I'm just kidding. I said 50, but I was lying.
50.
All right. Let's see.
I was camping. I don't know. I wasn't here.
Yeah, same here.
You went backpacking, right, Ben?
Huh?
You went backpacking, right?
Yeah, I went to Yosemite. Yeah, it was pretty awesome.
Nice. You weren't choking on smoke.
That was
No. I got back like right before it hit. Pretty hard.
Nice. All right. Sorry, I'm just still trying to figure my S out right now.
Can we come back later?
No. We're coming in right now.
Hans, you look like you're in an abandoned building.
What's up?
You look like you're in an abandoned building or something. You have like nothing behind you.
In a warehouse with all the other kidnapped victims.
Yeah. And a light switch.
And the lights.
Hey, there you go.
Oh my god.
It was all right. It's not a problem. I wasn't criticizing it. I was just making a joke. Oh, that's better.
You go dark. I at least have one thing.
I've had the same thing on my dry erase board for
It's
so
real.
long I can't erase it.
Dry erase my ass.
I know, exactly. More like wet erase.
I'm trying out this new Microsoft Pro pad thingy, whatever it's called.
Surface
Pro, yeah. They're going to throw it away, and I said I might be able to fix that.
Nice.
So I just fixed it.
Congratulations. Hans, I'm proud of you. Hey, oh, there we go. Now I don't look so bad as a ghost. All right. Welcome. Joshua, welcome. Everyone, our new member, Josh. I don't know if you go by Josh or Joshua. Josh, would you mind introducing yourself? Well, first off, I'll go introduce everyone who's in here so far. My name is Chris. I'm the current president as of last month. And 2 years before that. But Christine Garrick, is the sitting vice president. Sean is the webmaster. Peter Carlson is the professional beer taster. Cellar master. Matt is our membership director. Ben is our treasurer. Hans is our devoted secretary. Kenny is the ever-present, effervescent. No, I don't know. Kenny's been here a long time. He's also a proprietor. Ah, damn it, Josh. He was like, oh, screw it.
Effervescent?
Josh is like, screw that, I'm out of here.
He's gassy.
I'm not
Bubbly.
going to deny that. You can ask Caitlin about that one.
No need.
Josh was like, fuck this, I'm out.
I mean, I don't blame him.
He came back in.
At first, I thought it was Reed, and you were just being a dick because he's never here.
No, it wasn't Josh Reed. No. Josh, we thought we lost you, and you were like, "Oh, forget these guys." He's probably trying to get his camera or something working. Well, anyway, I told Jeff Finn, I was like, "Don't worry about getting in here right on time. Most of the time, it takes us like 15 minutes to get everyone in and get everything going." So he will be in shortly. I'm really excited for today because, I mean, having a brewer who started in the Humboldt Homebrewers and then has turned pro is pretty exciting to, get that perspective. Yeah, I'm pretty stoked. Pretty stoked about that. Just out of curiosity, did everyone get the monthly club email to their inbox a week ago?
I think so.
Did anybody, to their knowledge, not get it?
I don't think I did.
Ben, you have too much email to go through, apparently. No, I'm kidding.
I wonder if I went to my junk.
I hope not. I've been trying to cut down on the amount of junkiness of our.
No, I mean,
stuff.
I get like other email serves, and they for some reason go to my junk, so I have to keep.
Yeah, mine
Okay.
was in promotions, but it's here.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, I'll check.
Just so everyone knows, the Ink people have changed. Oh, it's Nancy. The Ink people have changed their donation link for us. So luckily, we've got an awesome webmaster who has the eyes of an eagle.
Hi.
Hey, hello, Nancy. Welcome.
Hi, thank you.
Welcome back, Nancy.
Hey, thank you. Thank you. It's nice to be back.
Yeah. Nice. Well, we're just getting started talking about what's going on in the club and how we've got a new donation link to pay for membership as of like this morning. So that's interesting. Hopefully the Ink people will stick with one payment processor for more than a year.
Seems unlikely.
Yeah, I think I think this is number 4 in maybe like 3 or 5 years or something like that. And it's annoying.
Yep.
Honestly. And, right now, as of now, I emailed back their tech person and complained like, hey, this page doesn't have any of our info on it. So when you click through, all it says is you're giving a donation to Ink people. And I know for me, I'd be like, is my club going to get this or not?
Yeah.
I think that's what happened to me.
Yeah. So I asked, I said, look, there's got to be something on there that indicates where this money's going. And so she said, well, we can't do it right now, but I have a support ticket open. So they're trying to do something. So we'll see what happens. And maybe, I hate to do it, but if we had to, we could present it in like an iframe or something that shows our logo up at top, which it sucks for a lot of reasons, but I don't really know what else we can do if they can't fix it.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Well, I just joined this morning.
Yeah, we got that, Nancy. So they did say that their donations are still outstanding. I mean, they're outstanding. They are still accepting it on the previous platform. It's just that they're hoping to transition to the new one soon. Anyway,
just FYI, I did update I did update our website to reflect the new platform, regardless.
Perfect. Thank you.
I don't want to impede the flow.
Yeah. If push comes to shove, they said, I talked to Karen and she said, if anything, we could just say, 1-year membership Humboldt Homebrewers as the radio button option.
It does say that now.
It does say that now. Yeah.
Yeah. I was just looking at it. It actually mentions us at least on the radio button.
That was a quick change.
Still garbage. But, it is what it is.
Humboldt Homebrews, not Homebrewers.
Close
man,
enough.
I thought I got it. Okay, well, we tried. Anyway, so that's what's going on currently. Ben, so the only thing that you have missed in the last, little while,
Yeah, I
Hans?
missed out.
Wait, were you at the officers meeting?
No, I just didn't go. I forgot about it.
Oh yeah, I remember.
I got it.
I remember.
And I'm sorry.
That's all
We
right.
came up with some good tasks for you to do though. We'll share those with you in private though.
Yeah. There are a few outstanding reimbursement things to take care of. Keep your eye on the Facebook group for that. Basically, it's just a Zoom account, and then for the club commercial calibration beers that we had going for last month. That's pretty much it.
So I should reach out to Pete, and you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. Hans is the now official secretary. Caitlin, how does it feel to not be typing? 2 thumbs. Awesome. Well, I'm really glad that you all have put in the service and continue to put in the effort to keep this club going. And it's good to see Nancy and Sean, who we very infrequently see. And I hope if anyone has a beverage that they're waiting to pop open, now might be a good time before we talk about a little bit of business before Jeff shows up in here. So with that being said, what's everyone improvising for a bottle opener these days? I've got a mini crescent wrench. That's going to be a fun one. It works just fine.
Went old school.
Yeah, nice. I still love that all the paint openers. Whoa,
Lucky
yeah,
Lager.
there we go. See, I honestly feel like, yeah, there we go. What is that, Sean? A Bic?
It's a lighter.
Yeah, all right. You see?
Not the safest
industrious.
option. It's not the safest option. Don't do it.
I've never had one of those explode in my hand before, luckily.
Safety third.
Yeah,
Using a
nice.
dime is hard.
Yeah.
I had to use a dime at a Raiders game one time and it tore up my hand.
Dime. Wow.
Wait, at a
How much
Raiders
did the
game?
dime cost you, Christy?
Huh?
How much did the dime cost you at a Raiders game?
It was in the car. It was fine.
Oh, not in the parking lot?
Well, not yet. No.
Oh my gosh, you guys are too good. Oh man. Well, so while we're waiting for Jeff to pop in here, oh, Riley, that's Jeff. That's Jeff in there. That's his son. Hey Riley, I didn't know you were old enough to drink. Hey Jeff.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Good. It's going great. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Just, I don't know if you can tell, I'm in my 7-year-old daughter's room. This is the best place to do a Zoom meeting. I've been setting this up.
Yeah, the kiddos at home tonight.
Say that again?
You have the kiddos at home tonight?
Oh yeah. No, we're just hanging out. We're watching a movie, eating apple pie that we made with apples from our own tree. So
nice.
Pretty good night.
Yeah. Well, in that case, we will.
We're coming over.
we will consider brevity a virtue here tonight.
Well, before you start, thank you guys for having me. It's a real honor because I feel like half you guys are way better than I am at this. So, anytime I have people here, I know you're here for the meeting, but I'm providing part of it, and I appreciate that, aspect of it. I'm humbled in front of you guys constantly. So thank you. Thanks
for joining us. I really appreciate it. And actually, I'm gonna rename you here just for posterity. So you'll be Jeff instead of Riley. All right. So as our monthly disclaimer goes, if anyone is not comfortable being recorded, please mute yourself or turn your video off. These meetings are going to be recorded for our members to be viewing later. Are you okay with that? Anyone not okay with that? Okay. All right. Just wanted that to be apparent. Let's see. Well, we're recording already, so Perfect. Anyway, welcome, Jeff. For anyone who doesn't know, Jeff is one of the brewers at Lost Coast. Jeff, when did you start working for Lost Coast?
I've been working for Lost Coast for about 7.5 years now. So I came on.
Has it really been that long?
It really has, yeah. No, I started working there about 18 months before the new facility opened up. And then I got to be the first guy over at the new facility. So I got to hang out with German brewers and fire all that stuff up. So that was an interesting experience.
Nice. So I'm so curious, when was the last time you brewed a homebrewed sized batch of beer?
Oh my God. Let me see. About 6 years ago, I brewed some double red IPA. And I had this red IPA recipe I really liked. And I was like, I'll just double it. I'm not going to brew that often. I'll double it. I'll make this strong red. And it was actually horrible. I learned the upper level of special B you want to put in a beer. I think a little special B in an Irish red is wonderful, but too much and it doesn't taste very good. But I tried to rush it when I got home from a shift too. So it's like I worked 8 hours, came home and homebrewed for 6 hours, and then woke up the next morning and went right back and brewed again. So before that though, it was that one crazy sour beer, if you remember that crazy one from way back in the day.
Oh,
I did an Imperial Lambic that I left on the fruit for like 1.5 years, and I still have one bottle of that. So I have a 9-year-old homebrew, but otherwise I am jealous if you guys are homebrewing regularly because it's something I long dream of. There's just stuff you can do homebrewing that you can't do on a big system.
No truer words have been spoken. I feel like we are blessed to have the ability to experiment as much as we want and be done when we feel like it instead of having to finish a batch. So Jeff, I guess that brings me to my next question is what have you really enjoyed about moving from homebrewing to pro brewing that you'd like other homebrewers to know about, rather than just the toiling and the hard labor and the hot humid air? What do you really like about it?
It sounds boring in a way, but so I put this out for QC reasons. I drink 5 to 6 sips of every batch of beer we brew every time. And so after you've drank the same beers over and over again on day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, you learn so much about each beer. And I know that sounds boring, like Great White, for example. I never want to grind coriander again in my life. I am so tired of grinding coriander. It drives me insane. But at the same time, we use California Ale 001 as our house yeast. I know so much about that yeast by knowing what it tastes like each day and knowing when it's happy and knowing when it's not happy. And so, for example, whenever I come to a homebrew contest, I may not be able to pick apart some of the subtler ingredients you guys may be putting into a beer. And I apologize to the ladies. I always say guys, and I know that's offensive to all you individuals. But I always focus on the fermentations. And so I'm always looking at, was it a healthy fermentation or not? Because I feel like that's the one thing I'm very experienced with. And just some of the subtle things where, what was it? Like about 3 years ago, I started handling all the yeast too. So not only do I, harvest yeast brew, but I look at yeast under a microscope. And so finding that optimal level of health and trying to figure out how to utilize yeast in just its optimum way. Like, for example, I joke that California Ale yeast is like a border collie. To use it right, you got to let it run. So you don't pitch it too heavily because it's not like it produces esters, but that real cleanness you get from it is from a lower pitch, and you let it run. You get it aerated well and you let it run. So that's the big thing, is drinking the same beer every day. It's fun, and a few people have been lucky enough that they've come by for a tour, and I was in a good mood and I felt like being involved with everybody. And we've had days where I was brewing Great White. I had Great White brew the day before, and then I had Great White that was 5 or 6 days in a fermenter. So I could be like, hey, this is an example of the mash. This is an example of day 1 of brewing. This is an example of what fermentation finish tastes like. And just really picking apart the nuances of that. So I think that's the big thing.
Nice. I love the process from the learning of starting to finish. I think it's super fun, and exposing other people to that too.
Absolutely. Well, and if you want to stop me at some point too, I never know what to say, you know. Like,
none of us do.
Yeah, right.
the last time I did a tour, I got to tour, if you can imagine how many years ago, with the ex-president of HSU, and it ended up being a 2-hour tour, and I didn't even get started. So if there's something you guys are ever interested at, just stop me, and this is your time. Let's make whatever you guys want of it to be what it is.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I'm hoping that you can talk. So I'm not going to take up too much time away from everyone else. So I'm hoping that other people can come in with questions. But I'm really curious about your experience with yeast. Just because our previous guest, who was on here from Mad River, he was kind of bemoaning the fact that, yeast pitches are so expensive. He wished he had the time and the money to really try out a bunch of different yeasts, but with the volume that they need for a batch, it's really cost prohibitive. So
it's interesting, because that's one of my things that I give as advice for young homebrewers. And I don't think anybody in this club I see here, because I recognize a lot of faces, falls in this category. Hold on one sec.
Yeah, bring them in here. Who's it?
Okay, my daughter's just telling me she's done with her pie, so I don't know how that relates to everything else. But so the one thing I always argue for young homebrewers is pick a yeast strain or two and just use it until you understand it, and then you can pick apart ingredients. But at the same time, it is frustrating not to get to use a lot of yeast strains, and so I fall back on the ones I've used previously homebrewing. Lost Coast right now, you guys may not see the beers, or you may not recognize what we do, but we actually from time to time use 2 other yeast strains. We use a Belgian ale yeast strain, just a real basic one, White Labs Belgian 400. And we do a beer just for Korea, if you can believe it or not. We do an authentic Belgian wit for Korea with real Belgian yeast, orange peel instead of lime leaf, like Great White. And it's a funny little beer. I try to ferment it cold so that it doesn't get too estery or anything like that. And then we also use East Coast Ale 009. That's our hazy yeast. And it's interesting because we kind of got shoved into this situation where there was a desire for the hazy, there was a desire for this authentic Belgian wit, but we have nowhere to put yeast. And so I'm sure somebody else is doing this. Anybody who thinks they're doing anything new in brewing is a fool. But I have a quick ferment or quick prop technique I've been doing. So for example, every batch of hazy you ever see on the shelf is actually a brand new propagation. And what I'll do is we'll brew, I think a full-size hazy is about 240 barrels. And we'll buy 3-barrel pitches, and I'll buy like 3 3-barrel pitches. And then I will plan out the fermenters 3 days in a row. And it's kind of funny. So you'll feed it like you would a prop, but not quite to the right scaling. And so it's like, we'll brew Great White on Monday and we'll feed the prop. And then we'll brew Harvest Wheat on Tuesday and feed the prop. And then on Wednesday, we'll brew hazy. And that's been a scary experience because, the yeast health is so important to do these crazy, weird props. If anything goes wrong, it kind of falls apart. But I think some people like our hazy right now, and I think the East Coast Ale is worth it. It's been worth some of the stress and the hardship. But overall, it would be fun to get to use a lot more yeast strains. I mean, that's one of the joys. Don't ever forget, what you've learned. I hope you guys take notes because, someday who knows where you'll be, and the chances you get. I mean, the only other yeast strain I'm real familiar with is White Labs. I think it's still 0029. The Kolsch yeast. And I was blessed years ago to get to brew with that at Eel River. And once again, knowledge is power. That's one of those weird strains that's sulfury until you lager it at room temperature, which sounds strange. The terminology is probably not right. But yes, I do bemoan the fact we don't get to brew with more yeast strains.
Nice. Well, thanks for answering that. I'm curious though, you had mentioned you do, so typically for a 240 barrel batch, you're buying 9 barrels worth of yeast, and then
Yeah.
you prop it up. So do you do like all 9 barrels worth of yeast, and that is what you're propagating?
So basically, I can give you I mean, for you guys, any question you have about recipes, not that I think there's too many Great White clones coming out of this crew at this point, but I will answer any question you have honestly and straightforward. So, I mean, our hazy, for example, I take 9 barrels worth of yeast, what you would brew if you called up White Labs and said, I'm going to brew a 9-barrel pale ale.
Mm-hmm.
This is what they'd send you. And so I will feed that 10 barrels of Great White. And that's day one. And I have these computer automated solenoid valves. And so I set them on timers. And I don't actually feed it through a stone or anything, but I just pump it through basically the bottom of the fermenter. And I pump through air, just, compressed air through a sanitary filter. And for 24 hours, it'll be 10 minutes of air, 20 minutes of rest, 10 minutes of air, 20 minutes of rest. And then the second day I'll feed it 30 barrels of harvest wheat. And same thing for the next day, it's 10 minutes of air, 20 minutes of rest, 10 minutes of air. And then by the third day, it's ready to brew that phenomenal amount of beer. I mean, it blows my mind. It saves us hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, just that weird little tick. And I apologize to anybody that tried the double hazy. If anybody's tried our double hazy when it first came out on the shelf, the first 2 batches, I was still trying to figure out the propagation, because there's certain things that I do at work that I know work, but I've never read a book or an article or anything that supports what I'm doing. And so you sort of got to get close and you feel your way through it. Similar to like, if you guys have ever done brew and water chemistry calculations, or tried to, any of the IBU calculations, the equations will get you close, but you got to feel your way through the rest of it. It's just, and once again, years of home brewing is the platform for every good brewer, I think.
Yeah. So just to clarify, so you feed it 90 barrels of beer to get it up to the point?
Technically 40.
40. Okay.
So 10 barrels the first day, 30 barrels the second day, under more or less constant aeration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. That is awesome.
I
just think that's amazing.
I mean, I don't know if we can ever do tours again in the COVID world, but yeah, I mean, if you ever want to see it, it looks so janky too. If you guys know Matt White from Eel River, he came by the other day to buy some caustic from us, and he took pictures because there's like polyvinyl tubing strung across the fermenters, zip tied to poles, and literally it's just polyvinyl tubing off a barbed fitting on a solenoid valve. And I clean it and steam it just like you would a draft line or something like that. It looks so janky. Like we joked because we moved into that new brewery and everything was shiny and nice. And we're like, how long till Jeff puts duct tape on everything and strings, zip ties all over?
A home brewer at heart. All right, go ahead, Kenny.
Function over form. It doesn't matter what it looks like as long as it works.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah.
No, thank you for that.
Well, I'm going to open it up for a question. Does anyone have a question directed for Jeff? Anyone before? Yeah, Kenny, go ahead.
So I spent some time kind of roaming around some of the homebrew pages and forums and stuff like that. And I found one recently where homebrewers were actually trying to clone the peanut butter stout.
Oh,
and,
okay.
Yeah, it was kind of a really cool thread, and I'll try to cross post it, or at least post a picture of it to the homebrew to the club page at some point later on tonight.
I had almost debated doing that as the beer tasting tonight, but I didn't want to. There's a little extract in that beer, and I didn't want to bring an extra to that. Yes, sir. Yeah, but go on. Sorry.
Oh no, it was kind of interesting to read what people were saying, because they were trying to figure out how to clone it on a homebrew scale.
Okay.
So taking that idea, not necessarily the peanut butter stout, but any commercial beer recipe, what would be your suggestions and advice to try to downscale a commercial beer to a homebrew scale format, say 5 gallon, 10 gallon, something like that. Even if you're brewing 80 million barrel batches or whatever it is, you know, it's really cool to see. But what would be your advice to homebrewers
That's a
to
great
try to
question,
scale something
Jamie.
down?
Well,
Great question.
I do get this occasionally, and believe it or not, it's a little painful at times, but it's usually the Great White or the Tangerine Wheat. Someone goes, I love Tangerine Wheat. How do I make it at home? And so the advice I give them usually is we're forced into certain things by scale. You know, for example, anytime we use extract, try to do it without extract. You know, for example, don't put tangerine extract and zest in your tangerines. You know, if you want, you know, anything like that, the proportions aren't too bad. You know, when I was at Eel River for 2.5 years before I moved over to Lost Coast, and they tried to scare me quite a bit in terms of homebrewers converting the recipe straight over end up very bitter. And so I was very cautious about that. And that's the big place where I see a lot of difference is we just use hops so efficiently because our kettles are so efficient. You know, we're boiling above 212 and it's just super efficient. Plus any hop addition takes 7 minutes. You know, knockouts are longer, whirlpools are longer. So the big adjustment is actually hops and IBUs and how you use that. I also would recommend, with the exception of Great White, I can't think of a mass market beer that uses low alpha hops for bittering. And so I would always substitute in, you know, Fuggles or a low alpha hop for the higher alpha hop bittering hops that, you know, most commercial brewers do. But proportion wise, the proportions hold out. You know, I had to do the milk stout as a 10 barrel and, I had to do the milk stout as a 10 barrel and the proportions held out. You know, in a very similar way. The IBUs are tricky. The other thing that you guys have a tremendous benefit of, and I apologize again, you individuals and brewers have a benefit of, is not centrifuging. People get really bummed out when you send them an entire keg and it's all yeast. And so what we end up doing is we have to centrifuge everything just to get it to a state where we can feel comfortable with the kegs. We do this beer, I don't know if anybody's seen it. It's okay. We do a version of the milk stout where I have more carafa in it. Part of it is the Wireman Carafa 3 dehusked, and we doubled that and then added a little vanilla to it, and we made it like a vanilla latte. And China is really into that. China wanted a vanilla latte stout, so that's the variation I did. But I had to prove it on the 10 barrel. And they actually loved it way more in the 10 barrel because it wasn't centrifuged. So it had that fullness of being completely unfiltered. So that's the other aspect that becomes tricky. It's mostly IBUs and the body, you know, grist and stuff like that. You know, it holds pretty true. Especially, I assume everybody here is decently high level with chemistry in terms of like at least getting in the ballpark of your pHs. Because that's the other thing. I'll give you the blowhard warning. I apologize. But at both Eel River and Lost Coast, they did no pH control before I started pushing them. And to watch Eel River's porter and how it changed when we weren't controlling pH to when we were controlling pH. And the same thing with Downtown Brown. Those are the two beers that change the most. And so if you're not doing pH control, you don't get as much crisp flavor. But Eel River's porter, we actually had to pull chocolate malt out of. And the same thing with the brown at Lost Coast, we had to pull chocolate malt out of it because the malts came through cleaner and then they came off harsher. And so for first couple months, Downtown Brown at the new facility was a little ashy and just too much chocolate malt. And I mean, as you can imagine, anytime you have to argue over something subjective, like I think this beer tastes like, it takes some time to work out the kinks of that situation.
Yeah, I think that's very enlightening. Thank you, Jeff.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah, no problem, man.
How did you control your pH balances of the water? Like what kind of filters did you run it through?
So it's, you know, I don't know how much you know about water chemistry, but the simplest thing is if you've never read anything about water chemistry, you read about alkalinity. And of all funny things, Chris and I met years ago I was not a professional in any stretch. We both worked at the Arcata pool, and I was doing the pool chemistry for the Arcata pool, and Chris was a lifeguard, wooing his current wife. And and the big thing was, alkalinity, if you're not familiar with it, is the buffering capacity of the water. So if you add an acid or a base to the water, how easy is it to change the pH? And up here, it's not that bad because our water isn't super mineral rich like, various parts of the world. And so at Eel River, it just started out as let's knock the alkalinity down. So we just dosed it with citric acid. And we knocked the alkalinity down, and it allowed the actual malts to change the beer to be what it needed to be. And the funny story of Eel River's Porter, we knew during the winter it tasted better than it tasted during the summer. And we're like, why is that? And what it turned out was the alkalinity goes up during the summer in pretty much everybody's water here. And what it makes it to be is that the pH is harder to change. So during the winter, when we brew the porter, the roasted malts would change the pH, or the chocolate malts would change the pH to a level that would get the pH in a healthy range for the yeast. It would come off cleaner and better. During the summer, the alkalinity goes up. The pH is less willing to change with the roasted or the chocolate malts. And then the yeast isn't quite as happy, and it comes off a little more muddled and a little less, punctuated and clean. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of my, everything else. Yeah, you can, we dose with phosphoric acid. We add enough calcium, with the water around here, you do need to add just a tiny bit of calcium for yeast health. But the big thing was just get the alkalinity out of the way. So if you're just starting out, just learn about alkalinity. The website Brew and Water is a great place to start with that, or the water book, the Elemental series, and just read about alkalinity. Everything else gets in the way a little bit. And once you figure out alkalinity, everything else gets a lot simpler.
Yeah, I do have one comment about that. Alkalinity varies so much around here, depending on where you get your water and who's treating it, and also what time of year. But buying a pool chemical,
Yes,
test system
absolutely.
is invaluable, and it's so cheap to get an alkalinity test. I mean, it's just those little test tubes that you shake, and then you compare the color, and alkalinity in itself is going to get you in the ballpark of a lot of adjustments that, some people think it's really cerebral, and you're just like, no, once you do figure out, how much acid you need to add to your recipe to get your mash pH in the ballpark, it's pretty simple. And I mean, I've got a test kit that I just, dip your water in, check it. I usually only check it every 3 or 4 months.
Yeah.
And it's pretty straightforward.
Well, it's funny too, because one of the nice things about brewing that I've always enjoyed, and it's one of the same reasons I love farming, is I like connecting myself to the earth in some ways. And I like thinking about what it's like to be a person who's not all that different from people that have been around for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And so the alkalinity shifts around here tend to happen when the rains start. And so right now, because it really hasn't started raining, our alkalinity is kind of maxing out. And once we start getting a couple storms in, you can actually see the changes. And it's funny because I did the same thing as Chris. I have pool test kits, and it's funny because there's all these fancy labs you can send your samples off to. But if you look up a few conversion equations, you can test everything with a basic pool test kit. And you can get those for, I don't know, under $100 for sure.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I've used pool test kits. But then the thing is too, I've used strips too, but then with my mash and the temperature affects it also.
Yeah.
So that's
where the calculators usually come in. A lot of the water chemistry I've done has been pre-mash, where as long as you know the starting, most of the calculators are pretty spot on for once you introduce other stuff to it. So if you get the water measured and correct, usually everything will follow the calculators pretty easily.
And it's pretty forgiving too. It's tricky because pH meters wear out and they need constant maintenance because they're just fragile. They only last about a year, and then you got to change them out. The pH is pretty forgiving. When I see how far off we were to some extent, 5.5 to 5.2, 5.6 to 5.2, it doesn't take much to get there. And it's a lot better than doing nothing. So.
Awesome. Hey, does anyone have any other questions for Jeff?
Well, where are you trying to get to with your pH?
So
depending on the beer, depending.
I try not to oversimplify it or overcomplicate it.
Yeah.
At work, once again, the triangulation of making a consistent product. More often than not, the issue is people forget to turn on glycol on fermenters and stuff like that. So it's like you try to force people to make as few decisions as possible when you're trying to do it, because I'll be honest, commercial brewing, you're in a factory, and factories are not known for being exciting places. Even your most exciting days are stressful as all hell because you're making a new beer or something. And, you would think that'd be exciting, but it's very stressful too. And so just trying to keep it simple for everything. My goal is about 5.35 for the mash. And I know there's a lot of variance, and I know there's a lot of more complicated techniques. And then I aim for somewhere between 5.0 and 5.2. So my goal is 5.35 in the mash, 5.1 in the wort, and then you have a big buffer on both sides. If you aim for 5.1 and you get 5.0, you're cool. If you aim for 5.1 and you get 5.2, you're cool. And your mash, realistically, anything below 5.5 and above 5.2, I haven't seen a broad variance with that. Somebody that's not hypercritical could tell the difference.
So you're saying in the mash 5.35?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's what once again, some of this stuff is pricey, but I know there's a lot of dedicated people here. pH meters aren't that expensive, and the probe is about $100 a year. If I'm ever not doing this professionally, I'm going to keep doing this at home, and I'll probably end up with a setup like that, and you treat things well and they last. But pH is so important, that it's really worth it. It really is. And I mean, my moniker I always do is healthy yeast and a good boil. So in pH is a big part of that. And you can muck up a lot of recipes, but as long as your yeast is healthy and your boil's good, it's going to work out okay. Hey, Char.
Oh, little Char.
I just had a comment about some recent experience trying to adjust match pH this weekend, actually. And using Beersmith, yeah, I don't know, it kind of hosed me a little bit, I think. And I'm using a totally cheap pH meter, so they're out there and they're accurate probably for a while until you drop it a couple times, or it just gets old, or you don't rinse it off, or you don't calibrate it, that kind of stuff. So, but I mashed in, stirred, waited a little while, and I get like 5.7. I'm like, it's a little out of range. So let me, in Beersmith, let me figure out how much lactic acid I should add. And it turned out to be way too much. I ended up like under 4. And, so I'm reading online and people are like, don't freak out. And, your beer might end up a little thin, but it's not going to be ruined, but it's not going to be what you wanted it to be. And then my OG turned out a little low and all of this, but I was going to say maybe, for one, I think Beersmith is going based on the water profile you add to it. And I'm not even sure I added water to the recipe. So it probably didn't calculate right. So anyway, I'm thinking maybe it's good to have the software to help, but then also to have like the dumb way, whatever that is, whether it's strips or something else. And
or nothing.
Well, yeah, or nothing. Don't worry about it, because it was never a problem before until I started messing with it, honestly. And the other is add a little more crystal malts to it. That'll lower the pH a little bit, don't. And then the other advice I read is, so when I did the Beersmith calculation, it said, when I did all the math, it was like nearly 3 teaspoons of this lactic acid. So I added it all at once. Bad move. So I read other people like, go like a half a teaspoon at a time, stir, wait, measure again. And that seems sensible compared to what I did.
I can see that. Well, and just be careful too. A lot of tests are mucked up by not being patient to let things homogenize to some extent to get a good sample. I mean, if you know, as we talk and I'm hashing out these ideas in my head, the simplest way I can think if you want to just do better with pH is exactly what Chris recommended. Take your brewing water, buy an alkalinity test. I'm a real big fan of Taylor test kits. You know, I was a pool guy for 13 years, something like that. I don't know, it's way too long. You know, I relied on Taylor test kits. And if you took your brewing water and tested your alkalinity and then just dosed it a little bit at a time with citric acid, you know, just granulated citric acid until you knocked your alkalinity down to 0, that would get you a long ways. And it would just let the beer do what it wants to do, you know, and it would prevent it from getting in the way. And just the sizable difference I saw at Eel River, because that's literally all we did, was we just took citric acid and we dumped it in the hot liquor tank until it alkalinity dropped low enough. And then once we did it a bunch of times and we got a feel for what it would do, you know, we didn't necessarily test it every time. But, you know, that's the biggest thing. Like, don't try to get too precise. You know, if your yeast are healthy and happy, you know, healthy yeast and a good boil. But if you know, look into it. If you've never tested water with a test kit, you know, look up Taylor Chemicals, look up a pool alkalinity test, and just ponder it. I couldn't recommend it enough. You know, just as a basic way to really start thinking this out.
Well, you know, there's a couple of things. One is that you can always, wherever you live, you can get a water report. You can request it and get it. Mm-hmm. And the other thing is that, you know, when I said sometimes to do nothing, there's a guy, I live in, well, I'm here, but I do spend a lot of time up in Central Oregon, up in Bend. And there's a guy up there, his name's Randy Sorby. He's like a triple master. He won Brewer of the Year, AHA. He knows a lot. And you know, that's what he said basically about the water chemistry. Remember, they have really good water up there too, is to do nothing. Mm-hmm. So, you know, yeah, you can overkill it too. With the water chemistry. And so sometimes, just like it's better to say nothing, sometimes it's better to do nothing.
Yeah.
So when I'm brewing, a lot of times I'm using the system at the shop, and I am nowhere near as competent as some of the folks here as far as water chemistry and everything. That is something that I can say is something I'm still learning about. One of the things that I've been doing is just running Eureka tap water through a charcoal filter and just brewing with that, not doing anything else to it. Yeah. And you know, I've definitely with some of those brews I've won awards. Other ones I've gotten good feedback from the tasting notes from the judges. But it's really interesting just to see what the difference was once I started running water through the charcoal filter to at least reduce the amount of chlorine and chloramine. I know Chris does the Camden tablets in his water. You're out in Blue Lake, right? Or no, you're actually in McKinleyville now.
Chris, McKinleyville now.
Yeah. Oh. So, you know, our tap water around here is pretty good. And as a general rule, if you don't drink it, don't brew with it. Yeah. That's just, you know. Yeah. But with that being said, you know, most of us here are doing all grain, and most of us here are doing more advanced techniques. But what would you suggest for folks that are just getting into it, that are you know, doing extracts, for example? Because water chemistry can play a huge part in your mash, But if you're just doing an extract with steeping grains, what would be your suggestion for those folks?
I think the simplest thing is just get water without chlorine. You know, whether you buy it from a machine, whether you have a filter that'll take out the chloramines or the chlorine, depending on where you're located. Just get the chlorine out. You know, that's the most important thing. You know, I've never won a contest since I understood water chemistry, but I knew enough to get the chlorine out, and I won a few contests doing that. You know, that's where I'd start. Yeah, because once again, this gets too complicated, too easy. You know,
yeah, it does.
It's almost worth ignoring water chemistry, like has been mentioned, completely, and just focus on your yeast health and get the chlorine out. You know, I had a much bigger jump in my home brewing, aerating with a little bit of oxygen, than I ever did trying to clean up the water chemistry. You know, and just a little blast of pure oxygen and some yeast that I treated well made all the difference. Yeah, because it's, you know, like I told you, I'm drinking the same beers over and over again. So I'm trying to like push these to the max. And you end up in this weird situation where at one point, this recipe became what it was, and there's shortcomings in it, but you can't change it now. And so you're just trying to maximize every nuance to it you can. And that pushes you down roads like exact pHs and, you know, slightly adjusting pitch rates where it gets way overcomplicated. It doesn't need to be that complicated. You know, the joy of this is to have fun, spend some time outside, and then have something to show off to your friends, you know. So I couldn't agree more. Just get the chlorine out and you're for the most part good.
Point of clarification, when I made that comment about do nothing, that would be the one thing is always to get the chlorine.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'll third that. Get the chlorine out. That's easy. Just get even just a simple carbon block filter, cheap. But the other thing is, you know, realizing too, if you're making 5 or 10 gallons, the effective water chemistry or pH is going to be so negligible compared to, you know, if you're making 200 barrels or something like that. Like, you know, if we need to get extra efficiency or whatever, it's a handful more grain.
Yeah.
So, but when you're dealing with that much, human power, wages, water, all those expenses, you know, a bad batch is really, really a bad thing. Where it's not the end of the world for a home brewer.
Yeah. No, believe it or not, we just dumped a batch of Great White. We very rarely do it, but it cost us $30,000. Yeah. I mean, it was 500 barrels, and that's pre-packaging, but it was as simple as somebody changing how we aerated it, you know, just slightly. You know, we brew, a big tank for us is 4 batches. We only aerate the first 3 because it takes about 16 hours to fill it once we start getting beer flowing in. And the yeast want to run by the time the 4th batch is going in there, and it just mucked it up. So, yeah. Yeah.
Well, there is such thing as too much oxygen then, huh?
Oh, no, absolutely. Believe it or not. I mean, nobody wants to hear somebody that used to work with them go back and be like, hey, I figured out what you guys were doing wrong. But Eel River's problem when I was there, we didn't realize it at the time, we should have bought a flow meter for our oxygen tank. And so when we were oxygenating our wort, we were over-oxygenating. And it led to too much yeast growth to the point where there weren't nutrients to sustain the yeast culture we produced. And so we always had this underlying must to it, and we could never figure it out. But we aerated to the point where we could see it in the sight glass. And if you can see it in the sight glass, usually it's actually too much. So you live and you learn. Yeah, too much is too much. Too little is not enough.
Awesome. Well, I'm just curious if anyone has any last pressing questions before we move along to our sip along while we pop a Revenant IPA. And I'm hoping Jeff can talk to us a little bit. I'm hoping not to keep you for, you know, more than like 8 minutes. I'm hoping to cut you off at 8 so you can get over to Charlie over there. Hi, Charlie. Someone's a little camera shy. Yeah. So
this is Charlie too.
Aw. So we're gonna take a quick 2-minute break,
Okay.
2 minutes, guys. Everyone go grab your beer if you need one. Go take a quick bathroom break. Maybe, check in with everyone. So we're going to be back here at 7:58 p.m.
Okay, I'll be right back.
Well, so what are you guys thinking so far? Ben looks like he's asleep. Hans and Christina are debating. Everyone's muted, by the way.
I'm muted,
This
yeah.
is super awesome.
Where I'm trying to figure out how they do the oxygenating of the wort, and then how does a person? I'm still new to brewing. How would I
Dumb that down?
how would I dumb that down to a 5 or 10 gallon batch?
And is it necessary?
Yeah.
Is it even necessary?
So this is something that I do currently do. Some people will use a pond pump where they'll pump air in, whereas some people will use concentrated oxygen.
I just took a straw and go,
And
go into it.
some people like to inoculate their gut flora with it. No, but what I do is I just use an oxygen stone, and usually I don't do starters. I don't do yeast starters just because it's more time and more complications for me. But a lot of homebrewers will either pipe in air using an air pump and a sanitary filter, or they will use concentrated oxygen. Usually concentrated oxygen, you're just doing it for like 15 seconds, blasting it, not blasting it, but like going as low as you can. Or if you're using a palm pump, some people will leave that palm pump in the inoculated wort or pre-pitch for however long they feel like it. But in terms of, bringing that commercial oxygenation down to a homebrewer scale, there are multiple ways to do it. I feel like the most important thing is making sure that things that you are using are sanitary. But in terms of, like Jeff, they were talking about propagation. So are you specifically asking about propagation of yeast, or do you mean like oxygenating your wort, Hans?
Oxygenating the wort.
Yeah.
And is that necessary on a homebrewer scale?
What I do is I use it looks like a paint mixer, but they use it to make wine.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like a butterfly. It opens up and I put it on a drill and I put it in my carboy, and it, it's like, it looks like a paint mixer.
Yeah, just aeration in general.
Aeration.
Called a
Really well.
degasser.
What?
It's called a degasser.
There you go.
It's a little dangerous to pick up and shake carboys, but I've done a lot in my life just by putting my hand over the top of a carboy and shaking it back and forth, and you kind of get the technique where you kind of rest it on your thighs. Because I did switch to eventually, having an aeration stone I got from More Beer, and you go to the hardware store and you buy an oxygen tank, you give it a minute burst. But like Chris said, I've ruined at least half the beers I've ever made at home were ruined by infections. I'm so tired of infections. So, you don't need to go to that level. Like literally just putting your hand over the top of your wort and shaking the hell out of it, and then letting it, until you can't do it anymore, and then rest for a couple minutes and shake the hell out of it again. Usually, I've made a lot of great beer doing that. It doesn't need to be overcomplicated.
Generally, a good shake will get, I can't remember the part per million of oxygen, but a good shake for a 5-gallon batch, shake it for 30 seconds or a minute or whatever, that should get plenty of oxygen incorporated, dissolved in the solution. I know you can get about twice as many part per million. I can't remember the exact number by using the actual pure concentrated oxygen through a stone. The downside to the stones are if you haven't boiled it and properly sanitized it, it's got a lot of micro pores that can harbor bacteria. So if you're not careful, you can actually contaminate your entire process by using those stones if they're not properly taken care of and sanitized.
Yeah, I think I'll just stick to shaking it.
Yeah. I mean, I just have to warn you too, if you've never shooken a carboy, in a way it kind of is dangerous, because you drop a carboy and it's a big knife basically all of a sudden. And I don't know if I'm sure a couple of people here have dropped something. Yeah, and you get the inclination as you're dropping it, you want to go to catch it. and it shatters and you just shove your hands right into the broken glass before you realize what happened. But it can be done safely. I've done it for years, but I've broken 5 or 6 carboys at this point. Never full of beer, but I have, yes.
Mine
All
was
right.
full of vodka.
Big vote for Speedles.
Yeah, Speedles. Yeah. All right, everyone. So we are going to be tasting along with Jeff here, and this month is our Revenant IPA. So Jeff, would you mind telling us? Well, first off, this is something that a lot of people don't understand or don't know. What is the Graveyard Series? You know, what does that mean to you?
I'm not sure what it means. I'm just kidding. It's this thing. If you've ever seen our brewery, it's between 2 graveyards.
Yeah.
And the first day I was brewing a beer there was a funeral out the window. It was dark. And it's this vague idea we have for the new hoppy beers. I think technically the hazy's in it. I think the triple IPA's in it. The Revenant's in it. I think the Fog Cutter's in it. It's not the most well thought out idea, but it's basically the new hoppy beers that came from the new facility. And basically all our hoppy beers. I mean, when I started at Lost Coast, we had the Indica and that was it. You know, we occasionally did a double, we occasionally did a pale, but there were no set recipes. And so since I've been there, everything has come to fruition. Now we have a steady double. Now we have a steady, we have a whole bunch of IPAs. We have IPAs you guys have never even seen too, that we sell overseas or sold once or twice or blah, blah, blah. So it just means new IPAs. A way over wordy answer to a short question.
No way, dude. That was perfect.
Thanks, Jeff. So tell us a little bit about Revenant IPA. Like, how did it come to fruition, and you know, how did it evolve, and you know, what went into the development of it, you know, from your perspective specifically?
This is a long story, so I apologize if once again I don't shut up for about way too long. But it started out years ago as a smash beer. For some reason, we were trying to make a red IPA. And I always joke that a red IPA is like an ink blot test. Everybody sees a red IPA as something different. Some people think it has chocolate malt in it. Some people think it doesn't, you know, you name it. It started out as a red IPA that was a red colored IPA. It was Red X malt, if you guys have ever seen it, and Eldorado hops. And we brewed it once. That was it. It was a smash beer, basically. And we got this great crop of Eldorado hops, and it was wonderful. It won best beer at the Reno Barbecue Festival. That's a claim to fame. And then every crop of Eldorado we ever got after that was never near as good. It was always underwhelming. And so we started going, we need to fix this because nobody likes this anymore. Everybody liked that first batch. And so we started playing around with it, and it became, I don't know if anybody's in the mountain biking club. There was a beer that was halfway between that original smash beer and the Revenant as it is today, called the Graveyard IPA. And it made it out once to a bicycle event. And that was the beer where we're like, okay, we need to revisit this. We need to reformulate it. Eldorado isn't what we thought it was. And that was when I really got my hands on it. The original smash beer was not my recipe. The first one, the Graveyard, was. And it was a fun beer because it became, okay, we need a big punchy red IPA. So it had chocolate malt, C70, Munich, all sorts of cool malts. And then it was a blend of Centennial, Amarillo, and Citra. And just this fun beer. But the debate always had been, and this started from the Eldorado failure, was how do you get gigantic aroma and flavor out of these gigantic brew houses where, you know, even the last edition hop you put in sits hot for at least 20 minutes, if not 45 minutes. How do you get those big flavors? And so the Graveyard IPA, I stole a homebrew idea I'd heard. And it was the first time I put in no bitter additions, no middle additions, no anything, just one enormous hop addition about 3 minutes out from the end of the boil. And it was this cool little beer. You know, and I say 3 minutes, but it takes 7 minutes to get a hop in. And so instead of putting in, I don't know, 55 pounds of hops overall, just spitballing. I was able to put in 88 pounds and get the same IBUs. And I was like, hell, there's a lot more oils, a lot more delicate flavors. And it turned out that the beer was neat, but I thought it was a colossal failure. And this is the darkness of how beers work through companies. I thought it was a failure because we taste tested it in our tap room. And it turned out that the guy who was supposed to be cleaning the tap lines didn't care anymore, and he stopped doing it 3 months ago. And so the beer tasted like freezer burn. And I was like, what the hell happened to this freaking beer, you know? And we ended up bottling about 20 cases, and I didn't try it because we tried it out of the tap room. It was garbage. And then I tried it out of the bottle, and I'm like, this is freaking amazing. But nobody else tried it out of the bottle. So the beer was dead at that point. And so at this point, we have this floundered red project. And this was 3 or 4 years ago. And our head salesman comes to me and he goes, people really like fresh squeezed. Fresh squeezed is taken over the world. Can we do something kind of like fresh squeezed? And I'm sure everybody here is familiar with fresh squeezed IPA. And so my understanding of what fresh squeezed IPA is you take these neat hops that you like the flavors, but you don't make it West Coast. And my understanding is you balance it with a sweet grist, and then you take these fruity hops and you'll get a fruitier beer. And so that's all I was trying to do, is make a sweet grist to pair well with a fruity hop selection. And so I actually wrote down proportions. Yeah, I mean, it's like 8% Breeze C60. You know, it's a fairly heavy load of, if you guys want to, I mean, I'll give you the whole freaking recipe if you want, if anybody's curious. Okay, I will. And so that was the whole idea, is you just pair these cool, sweet hops, and then you pair this magical hop called Citra, where everybody loves Citra. Citra's fruity, it's full of passion fruit, but I've always found Citra has this other magical element where it finds whatever is the crappiest quality of a hop you pair it with, and it just masks it. It's this wonderful masking hop. You pair it with Mosaic and it masks that footiness. You pair it with Equinox and it covers the green bell pepper. You put it with Simcoe and it kind of shields the pine and the pepper a little bit. And so it's this, you combine these two erasers, basically, the C60, the sweetness to thicken it out, and the Citra with the Simcoe. And so you're just getting this fruity, you know, I took every fruity hop I could find and paired it with sweet grist. And then this just crazy notion of super late additions with no bittering addition. So the Revenant is just Simcoe and Citra. And there's no hops in the boil for longer than 5 minutes, somewhere in that ballpark. No bitter addition, all super late. It's super fun to brew because
you whirlpool it.
What's that?
You whirlpool the do you put it in at flame out?
No, you know, that's one thing that we played around with, and the whirlpool function at a commercial brewery is a little different. What I've noticed is the whirlpools, I don't know if any commercial brewery should ever put a whirlpool hop in. Mm-hmm. And at this point, Revenant's committed to a whirlpool hop, but what tends to happen for us is you can't put the whirlpool hops in after your whirlpool is full, because then they don't settle out and then they clog up your exchanger and everything. So you have to put them in before you put the beer in, and then the beer picks it up in the whirlpool. And I don't know if this is the right terminology, but I feel like it sequesters the good flavors and aromas in the pile it forms in the center. And so the Revenant is the last late gigantic edition beer that we do where we have a whirlpool hop. And I can talk about some more beers later where we built upon this. So it's got some Citra in the whirlpool, and it's got Citra and Simcoe in the very last edition. And it's basically 2-to-1 Citra to Simcoe. Very much at the end, aiming for about 50 IBUs, and then just paired with this sweet grist. And that's the whole idea.
Well,
and go ahead.
I'm sorry, I have another question. When you you put it in it, I'm assuming at flame out, and then you just let it sit there and let the oils do their thing? Or,
for, you know, any commercial,
10 minutes before. That's what I'm trying to get to.
Okay, I can be more clear on that. What temperature is that addition? That addition is at 212, if you will. And so it goes in, like I said, it takes 7 minutes for a hop addition for us. So it's considered 3 minutes from the end of the boil, but it takes 7 minutes to get in there. So it's about a 10-minute hop addition. Every commercial whirlpool rest is 20 minutes. There's just something magical about that 20 minutes. You try to cut it short and you end up clogging up your exchanger. And so it's about 10 minutes from the end of the boil. You know, you're going to get, probably 35 to 40% of the IBUs from that addition in the kettle. And then a small whirlpool addition of Citra as well. It's 20-minute whirlpool rest. And it's about a 35 to 40-minute knockout. So a portion of it is still in the whirlpool for that whole time. But progressing on to future beers, if you guys have had the can IPA, that red can, if you've had the hazy, there's a couple others. We just cut the whirlpool edition. So our hazy IPA has one addition, 10 minutes from the end of the boil. The can IPA has one addition, 10 minutes from the end of the boil. It was the whole idea scared the crap out of me. And I remember at some contest, I talked to Glenn Tinseth about it, and he kind of looked at me funny. And I was enough beers in that I was just shooting the shit. And I was like, whatever, you know, and he's a very polite guy, so he didn't call my bullshit too much. But yeah, no. And so if you will, if anybody wants to write this down, I'll give you the grist real quick.
Yeah, please do it, Jeff.
Yeah. So the grist is 8% Brie C60, 4% Brie, the Bonlander Munich, so that 10% or 10-11 Bon Munich, that's 4%. It's 2% Brie Carapils, and then the rest is 2-row.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
And then so for us, it's a 90-barrel batch. I've meant to do more work for you guys to help this out, but it's a 90-barrel batch for us, so you guys can extrapolate down. And it's the kettle additions are 44 pounds of Citra, 22 pounds of Simcoe, and then the Whirlpool edition is 44 pounds of Citra. And that's another idea, actually, I stole from a guy that, if anybody's been around long enough, he's a memorable guy, but not in a good way. But he pitched to me this idea a long time ago of never keep an open bag of hops around. Tailor all your recipes to full bags of hops. And that's something I really strive for. You know, the Fog Cutter uses 1 box of Centennial for the boil. The can IPA uses a box of Mosaic and half a box of Citra. You know, everything is you're always opening a fresh box of hops. So the hops are never sitting around getting old, you know, just fresh ingredients. You know, you might fudge the IBUs by 5 or so. I will take a fudge like that every time for fresh hops.
Yeah, I think that's one of the big takeaways, Jeff, from seeing your homebrew batches, which some had like 12 different grains. Yeah. To where you are now. I mean, just where the recipes that you're brewing frequently are, where they have transformed into, here's an entire bag of this, here's an entire box of that. And yeah. I mean, it makes sense, and it makes it easy on a commercial scale, but on a homebrewer scale, I remember converting winter brawn into a homebrew scale, and I was like, holy, like there's like 0.8 ounce, there's like 0.8 ounces on some of these things. And, you know, so on a commercial scale, it makes so much sense. And I'm not sure if most people know this, but what are the typical bags of hops? You said 44 pounds or 22 pounds. So a typical bag of hops for you guys is 22 pounds, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, everything you buy, the standard is 44 pounds, but usually it's a split 22 pound, you know, 2 22-pound bags in a 44-pound box. And then grain is usually 55 pounds. And so, you know, when you picture like, hey, the beer doesn't taste as good when they went to this brewery or that brewery, you've seen time and time again, it's because you don't want to do partial bags. You know, everybody nudges it one way or the other to make it logistical. But no, but it's funny you mentioned that, because part of the reason I wanted to do the milk stout potentially today is it incorporates a different idea I did. I firmly believe in a different way of dark malts, where if you want to have kind of like a haircut. You know, if your hair is longer on top and shorter on the side, you don't just go long short, you blend it. And so for example, if you're brewing a beer and you put C120 in a beer, I believe you should also put C70 and C40 and C15, and you just create these layered effects. So like the milk stout, for example, has C70, C135, has chocolate, has carafa, it has roast, and it's just this layering effect of like no sharp edges, just smooth edges. So that was a different idea I'd proposed talking, but once again, I can't make you guys drink a beer that has extract in it, even if it's just a tiny, tiny bit. But
I remember you bemoaning some of the processes that have arrived in order to get you to that peanut butter chocolate.
Oh my God, yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's neat. If you guys have never tried Wireman Carafa 3 dehusked, it's this cool roast malt that's not bitter. It's if you've never seen it, I think the way you spell it, I can't spell, but it's like CARAFA 3 dehusked. Thank you, Char. And it has this subtle coffee note. And just, once you get to a level, you build like a solid recipe. And when you want to branch out, you just tweak it, and that's what I realized. Like, somebody was talking about Beersmith earlier. I think it was Sean earlier. And, the home runs that started happening were, at least I think we're making some neat beers here and there now. Despite what we are, is once we hit a couple templates of, okay, this is what a decent IPA looks like at this scale. This is what a decent stout looks like. And you create templates. And you build off of templates more so than you try to build from scratch, and so you say, okay, this pail worked, but let's just tweak it. Let's just add a little 2-row I toast in my oven, or let's add like, okay, I really like my stout, but let's add a little Carafa 3 and give it just a subtle coffee note, or, add a touch of chocolate malt or something. And you just, you take something you're really familiar with and you just tweak it a little bit here and there. And, I found much more success with that. But
that's the beauty of Beersmith, is you can adjust that. I mean, you have to have your water profile, your equipment profile have to be dialed in, or it's meaningless, really. But once you get that dialed in, it's really accurate in a lot of ways. Like I've been able to follow the directions and hit my OG every time. If once I get that profile set, and once I get it set, and then, like you said, I load an old recipe, and I just and I make a copy, and then I do a what if. I add a little more of this kind of grain, that kind of grain, later hop addition, earlier hop addition, substitutes, all of that, and that is the most fun to play with.
Yeah.
And once you've got it set up for your situation, it's very, very helpful and easy to try those things, at least in an abstract way, before you actually go buy your ingredients and everything.
Well, and I don't want it to sound for a second like I'm slandering someone for using something or using a certain technique, because I also realize everybody does it their own way, and I get a feeling that there's probably different personalities of brewers here. I brew best by myself. When I was coming up, my favorite thing to do was get up at 5 o'clock in the morning on whatever my Saturday was at that time, and just go into the cave by myself, brew by myself. I'm not a big fan of brewing with other people. Some people that benefits tremendously with. I know a lot of people that always have a buddy there or a helper or something. I'm totally the hermit in a cave brewer. And, there's a million different ways to do it. I mean, it's like, that's what makes this cool, is it's science and art. You learn enough of the science that you can do the art, and so I don't want to make it sound like too I'm bashing on any technique, because most of you are probably better at this than I am. I've just had more opportunity, and I convinced enough silly people to trust me. So,
and you had a plumbing certification.
Believe it or not, that's what got me in a brewery, is I went to night school for being a plumber. I'm a failed high school teacher. I was going to try to be a high school history teacher. I have zero brewing education, zero. And plumbing and doing swimming pools got me through the door, and hard work got me the rest. So don't let all those certificates and degrees make you feel shamed. Everybody here can do just as well, if not better. And actually, that's one thing I see is, college is a tricky thing now where a lot of college feels like a business. But there are brewing degree holders coming out of school that have never homebrewed, and they are lost in the woods. They don't even know where to begin. And a homebrewer that's never set foot in a brewery is 10 times more valuable. So,
that's interesting. Like up in Bend, a lot of there's a lot of good brewers up there, and I would say 90% of them they're all home brewers. And one of them, this Sun River Brewery, Seth, his name's Seth Thomas. Anyway, but he came and spoke to our brew club, and he's like, and this is really, I think this is really cool. He's like, home brewers, the world is your oyster. You don't have to worry about making, losing 50 tons of grain or this or that. We get to do whatever we want. It's not the end of the world. I mean, nobody likes to dump a keg, but we get to experiment, and that's part of the joy of being a home brewer. And I thought, this guy makes great beer now. I mean, he has a commercial brewery, or he's a master brewer at Sun River Brewing, and very good. But he won Brewer of the Year in Denver at the Great American Brew Fest. Super nice guy, and really shares his information. But he'd make all these beers. If he didn't like them, he'd toss them, and then he'd make more. But that was just such a great thing to say to a group of people that are just puttering around, hey, you get to do whatever you want, and it's true. We don't, we're not going to lose $30,000. Well, not with beer anyway.
Something to keep in mind too is doing a 5 or 10 gallon batch at home is harder than doing a 10 barrel batch at work. It's more work. And so, you have to be passionate to fight your way through homebrewing. You really do. And developing that kind of passion is the only thing that keeps me going, because there's plenty of days where you're bogged down, you're suffering for some reason or another. I mean, our spent grain chute clogged the other day, and it took 3 hours of just scooping out rice holes, one handful at a time, and you just want to shoot everybody within 100 feet of you. You're just like, I've had enough. But deep down, there's some sort of passion, that something you built to that makes it worthwhile. And I don't know. I love coming out and talking to you guys whenever I can, hopefully on a level playing field, if not below you, because it reminds me of why this is special, and why it's something worth believing in. And, it's something that connects us to the past. It's no different than somebody enjoying a homebrew 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago. It's something that makes us human. It's cool. I can't get enough of it. Speaking of that too, I know people wrote down some notes and stuff. You guys are free to contact me anytime. I can give out my email address if you ever have any questions or something. I don't feel like I have anything more to offer than Chris, or I actually helped Chris learn to brew, and then he's transcended me. But
who gave you the idea for all those non-boil editions?
But if you ever, I'm happy to give out my email address if you ever want to touch base or text or anything like that. What's that?
I said that would be great.
Let's do it real quick while we're all here. My last name's Finn, Finn, and so my email address is FINN83, the number 83, and that's at gmail.com. I don't check my email a lot, but you can email me anytime, and I will eventually get back to you. It may take a day, it might take a week, it might take 3 weeks, but if you ever want a pint of yeast that is healthy, or something like that, or just to shoot the shit, or if you have something cool you want to show me. It's hard to find good beer on the shelves anymore, so I appreciate any homebrew anytime. And on that same note too, I have all sorts of cool experimental hops I wanted to give out as some part of this, if Chris can figure out some way to make that work.
Yeah, so I'm hoping to get those from you this weekend, and then we'll be making that part of our raffle. And speaking of, so Jeff, first off, thank you so much for sharing so much of your experience and knowledge and your insights. I feel like having a pro brewer who was a previous homebrewer is invaluable to a club, you know, especially someone who's willing to, you know, divulge trade secrets, ooh, you know, because those are some of the things that a lot of people are really tight-lipped about. And, you know, we as homebrewers can appreciate these little tidbits of knowledge that, you know, people have built up over a decade, you know. Jeff, you've been a commercial brewer for almost 10 years.
Yeah. No, can I subtle little shout out? Carlos up at Six Rivers, when I was a lowly homebrewer, gave me a pitch of his lambic yeast back when it was a real lambic, and I won 3 contests with that yeast. I mean, all the cool people around. He had no idea who I was. I mean, I knew his son. If you guys know Darius, Darius is interesting. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. But you know, I mean, just. You're always trying to do nice things for other people. Like the older I get, the more I realize just try to be as nice to everybody as you can. You're not special. You know, none of us are all that special. Let's just try to treat each other well. So.
Thanks, Jeff. I really appreciate that. And that's great imparting knowledge. If anyone's got any other additions to this or questions for Jeff, I think we're going to wrap this up and let him get on with his night. Yeah, round of applause. Kenny, yeah, one last question.
Just not a question. I just want to say thank you, Jeff. You know, Lost Coast was one of the kind of original new old wave of breweries that came into Humboldt in the late 80s. And, you know, Barbara's you know, she's a pioneer in the industry. And the fact that you got a chance and an opportunity to be a part of the new tradition with the new brew house and kind of be one of the original brewers on that is phenomenal. And so I got to say, thank you very much for being a part of this. And, you know, it was really good to see the connection, you know, from your past being a home brewer to now being a pro brewer. But it's also amazing to see that you're willing to talk with us and just be a part of the group. So thank you very much, man.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kenny. You know, it's funny because Strange Brew's not happening this year, and I bought a bunch of Rose Loire from you. I try to come to you whenever I can. And since Strange Brew's not happening, I actually gave some Rose Loire to my neighbor across the street that's going to ferment some cider with Rose Loire. We'll see what happens with that. I'm excited for that.
Nice. Yeah, well, thank you, Jeff. I can't say thank you enough.
But I do realize now that you invited me over to see your goats this weekend as an ulterior motive to get hops from me.
No way, man. No way. I can't wait to see Charlie and Riley. I mean, those kids are growing up so fast. So fast. Oh, man.
No, thank you so much, guys. Yeah, feel free to contact me. I'm just a normal person like you. So.
All right. Before you go, if anyone doesn't have any objections, I'd like to include Jeff in our raffle for today. So what I'm going to be doing right here is I'm going to share my screen. So what I have done, can you guys see, are you seeing one screen or 2 screens?
One.
Okay, so you see everyone's name here, 1 through 12, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we've got 12 numbers. I'm going to go to a random number generator, minimum 1 through 12. So, Pete, how many beers do we have to give away from Dead Reckoning? 4. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to do this random number generator 4 times. If there are any repeats, what do y'all think? Should I do it? Should I do it over again, or should someone get 2 beers?
I think you should share the love. As many beers.
Share the love.
All right, everyone. So first number generator, here we go. Number 5. Who's lucky number 5? That is Hans. Hans,
Hey!
you have a beer, 1 beer waiting for you at Dead Reckoning. Just tell them you're there for the Homebrew Club commercial beer. All right, number 2. What? Number 2. All right, let's see. Number 2. I win a beer. Yay!
That's rigged.
All right, here's number 3. It's 6. Let's see who winner number. Christina.
Hey.
All right, last one for the evening. Who will the winner be? Number 5. Hans, wait, you already won. Let's get this guy out of here. Number 12. Who's number 12? Sean. All right, Sean.
Hey, Sean.
So we have Sean as the winner, Christina, Hans, and myself. All right. Thank you. I will be letting Theo at Dead Reckoning know that we have some expectant winners going to pick up some commercial beers from us.
Those are the Motorhead.
Yep, the Motu Head from who brewed that? I don't recall. Cooperage Brewing Company.
I blanked.
Yeah, so it was a delicious beer. It was our commercial calibration 2 months ago or last month?
Last month.
Last month. So go to Dead Reckoning, pick it up. It should be there. Jeff, thank you so much for joining us. I would look forward to, all of the conversations that this has spurred, some debates maybe that everyone's going to be having. Hans and Christina are, having some heated conversations. How would we introduce air? Maybe that's not what it was
1,
about.
2, or 3. Which one is it? 1, 2, or 3?
All of them.
3.
All of them. Yeah. So Jeff, thank you so much. We really appreciate your time, and we look forward to seeing you at the events when we can have events. And yeah.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks a lot, Jeff. That's awesome.
Thank you. Maybe I'll sit in with you guys next month. It's hard to get out to the meetings, but if it's on Zoom, I might sit in.
Yeah. So just as a heads up, next month we're hoping to either have either Jippo Ale Mill,
Nice.
Redwood Curtain,
Nice.
or Eel River. So those are the 3 up for contention for next month.
Are you trying to get Mike or Matt for Eel River?
I haven't. I think it's going to be Mike. Who?
Okay.
I mean, who would you pick, Mike or Matt?
Well, it depends. There's 2 Matts. So there's the Matt, son of the owner, who is Mr. Businessman. There's Matt, my buddy Matt White, who took my job when I left there. But Mike Smith, man, Mike Smith's my role model. If you guys don't know who Mike Smith is, he's a cool guy. I think you'll like him. He taught me that a brewer needs to be a maniac that always has a duct tape roll in their hand and has to fix stuff and brew stuff at the same time and be crazy all the time. So
he's not wrong. Thanks, Jeff. I really appreciate it. And I believe you got our monthly email saying what we were doing, right? Did you see our email?
I have no idea. I went on Facebook for the first time in a couple months because you told me to go on there for this. So
awesome. Well, now that I have your email, you're going to be getting our monthly email with the Zoom links if you feel like joining.
I would love to. I've been meaning to for a long time.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeff. I really appreciate it. And I'll be contacting you offline to see if you can come over on Saturday or Sunday to watch the goats.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you for the honor of getting to talk to you.
Woo! Cheers. Cheers.
Cheers.
All right, Jeff. Get out of here. Go enjoy your family.
I'll try.
All right, guys. Well, that was super fun. I was so excited for that all to happen and go down. And you know what? I kind of want to add on to that pile of potentials for next month. Maybe we'll get Six Rivers in here, whoever it may be, whether it's, Meredith from the business side or whether it's Carlos. I don't know. We'll see. But I mean, the more people we can buckshot it out to and say, who wants to come, it works out sometimes. So keep that in mind. Next up on our agenda, I'm going to cut off. I'm going to be nixing the quick lager, hybrid lager discussion from this. Sorry, I'm going to be nixing that because I want to keep it brief and we have a lot of talking to do. Not me, hopefully. I'm hoping it's going to be all y'all talking and me going, because we have things to talk about in regards to our, how do we put it? At our officers meeting, we were talking about a PAL Camp replacement beer, which transformed into a big brew beer, which transformed into a homebrew care package, which also transformed into a Secret Santa kind of thing. So I'm hoping that we can discuss amongst ourselves. I know it's like a freaking ping pong, a pinball discussion, but that's how it goes sometimes. Unfortunately, our PR director is not here right now to, further throw some ideas into the pit as she did during our officers meeting. But our PAL camp out is usually the first full moon of September. That has come and gone. The first full moon was September 1st or 2nd. It was also the harvest moon, so that has come and gone. Unfortunately, we were not camping and brewing together. Sean, I miss your giant behemoth of a system and those persnickety O-rings for us to misplace in the dark.
Well, hey, you know that I've had zero reason to use that big system in quite a while because, you know why.
Oh yeah. Who's got the time to wait for 30 some odd gallons to boil, and who's got that propane to burn?
Well, no, like most years, I brew a bunch of times in the spring, and then I don't brew at all during the summer. And every event I go to, I bring a little beer, and there aren't any events. There's no reason to make that much beer right now. So I made a new system that's 10 gallons.
Sounds like some responsible consumption.
Well, I could make a really great IPA, and there's no way in hell it's gonna be a great IPA by the time I get to the last 20 gallons.
Yeah, that's true. So, Hans, do you have the notes from the officers meeting?
I do.
Would you mind pulling those up to see what came of our conversation? Because I'm struggling to remember what the end of our conversation sounded like. It sounded like we wanted to put together some homebrew packs where basically you get what you get, you brew what you can, and then 2 to 3 months later, we hope to exchange some of those beers or leave them as gifts on people's porches if they're unwilling.
So the plan was to do some type of package deal where we can put together a small bag, kind of like a iron brew, where we give a little bit of malt, or we give a little bit of, we give a little bit of a specialty brew. We're gonna come with some dark malts or whatever specialty things, and then some random hops, whatever we got, and people would come by here, pick up their package, go home, do a brew, make a batch of something, bottle it, bring it back here. That would be enough for everybody involved in the brew. So if out of everybody in the club, we had 7 people who wanted to do this, then we would make 7 packages. They would go out, and I'd expect to get back 7 beers from everyone who brews. So we can give 1 out to each person who also decided to do it. Does that make sense?
Cool. So it sounds to me like we're hoping to receive back to distribute 7 bottles of beer or 7 different batches of beer. If 7 is the amount of people wanting to do it.
Right. So 7 would be, all 7 bags would be the same. So it'd be, a little bit of this hop or a little bit of this grain, or it would all generally be the same. And then getting back is just equal number of brew for the equal number of people involved. So if you make they made a batch. So if you made a 5-gallon batch, all we would need is 7 brews back, so I could then distribute it to each and every one of you who were involved. So we could all do a tasting on the next meeting, I guess.
Well, what you're talking about is 7 12-ounce bottles. Is that what you mean?
Yes, yes, for whoever decided to do it.
Like 7 sets.
Yeah.
A 7-pack.
A 7-pack. Mind you, if
Yeah.
12 people are involved, then we need a 12-pack because everybody's got to get one bottle to do the tasting.
Yeah. So
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, and you want to get back one of yours, so and maybe you could mix it up in there and try to be objective.
there you go. Well, I don't know that we were hoping to, direct this to be a competition, but how do y'all feel about that? I mean,
I'm always down for a little
I
competition.
think that'd be a really great experience.
I think that would be fun. Not necessarily written feedback, but maybe like, of the bottles you get back, best of show, and you email the club saying, here's my top 3,
Yeah.
number whatever, number whatever, number whatever. What do you think about that?
I mean, I honestly, as a brewer, would just like feedback too. We're not
Okay.
really opportunity to do that these days, so that would be cool.
Yeah, we've got no events to get feedback right now.
I know.
Well,
So what do you guys?
I was going to say, as much as we're not maybe qualified to do it, maybe we should just use the BJCP forms. Like, as well as we can.
Yeah.
Okay, so when we distribute the beers back out to people, we will include judging forms. What do y'all think about that?
I think with maybe a big like cross out.
Oh yeah.
We could make a Google form theoretically.
Oh yeah. Oh, we totally could. You're right.
That'd be
All right.
easy.
So out of everybody here, if you can raise your physical hand if you would be interested in not only. Well, okay. First, raise your hand if you would be interested in brewing with a mystery bag of ingredients. Okay. So now, of those people who did raise their hand, who would be interested in also giving rudimentary or detailed feedback via Google Forms regarding the beer you received?
No.
Okay, so I'd say it's about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, okay, we're a little delayed.
I was processing the Google form idea as you were asking.
Basically, we would turn the BJCP judging form into a Google form.
So like the quick judge sheet kind of thing.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah. Easy teenage version, please.
Yeah, exactly. The easy version, which I think is great. I mean, one comment, open free form sentence per section. So yeah, Christina.
Go ahead, Christina.
I was just thinking for those, because it seemed like there were 2 people that were interested in brewing, but maybe not interested in the providing of feedback. We could sort of make it an open-ended thing where you still could get the opportunity to brew with those ingredients, but you don't necessarily have to participate in the said competition.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's just gauging how into it people would be. It's not like, oh, only half of us are interested, forget it. Yeah. No, I mean, I think it should be a choose your own adventure thing, because a lot of people do like to brew beer, but they don't really like to taste it and then give feedback on it, which I understand, but some people do want feedback.
Yeah,
and that is okay. You can decide once you pop it open if it's a stinker and you don't feel like giving any positive feedback. That's up to you.
Voluntary on both sides the whole way, and then it's totally, to me. I'm thinking in the spirit of sharing and education only, and not like, oh, your magic is not as good as my magic. Nothing like that. More like, hey, here's what I'm tasting, and even I think that's why I was saying, like, even judge your own. Like to say, like, okay, now that I have it back to me in a bottle, it's undercarbonated and it's malty and kind of odd. I mean, I don't know.
To learn, right?
Yeah, and I'd be more curious, like how you were able to bring out certain flavors of the same hop. Like, is it fruitier or is it more bitter, and then how'd you get that?
Yeah. All right. Next up is Kenny.
Really easy way to do that would be upon intake, they would be randomized, and only a few people have access to the actual entry numbers and everything. But I think it's a great idea, because if your number is randomized and you don't know which out of the 6 or 8 or 12 beers that you have is yours, I think it's a fantastic idea.
Yeah.
I think it's a really, really good idea, guys.
Crap,
I really like this. I really like how this just boom happened. You know, we didn't even talk about like a competition or feedback or anything at the officers meeting, so I'm really excited for this. Matt's face palming himself for not thinking of it himself. I know, but we have a tendency to overcomplicate or oversimplify things in any direction. So, okay, so
Hey,
now
it's a goal.
Yeah. So now comes the complication of, you know, do we want to open it to more people than there are just here?
Active members.
Active members. That's what I
Active
said.
members, yeah, for sure. I mean, members, current members or active members?
Current.
Current.
Paid, in good standing members.
Okay, cool.
Have to be a paid member.
Except for
Okay,
Jeff
now-
Finn. I mean, Jeff Finn can be involved if he wants to, but
Yeah, good luck. I've been trying to get him to brew a batch for the last 6 years. I invite him over all the time. Anyway, so how do we want to do the grain? The hops is kind of like, so as a club, we've got Pearl and Summit, and it's just underneath a pound. So if we were to do a pound, 16 ounces. So if we do 2 ounces per person, that would be 8 people, you know, but there's 9 people here. Just out of curiosity, who here does not want to brew? Just out of curiosity. Raise your hand. Oh, Chrissy, come on, you can use hops.
Come on, Chrissy.
No, guys, okay, stop dogpiling on her.
I'm
She's
not necessarily
busy.
saying I don't want to brew. I says I'm already behind on
I know.
brewing, and
Me too.
doing another batch.
It's mostly
Like
for your
Sean
enjoyment.
said, like Sean said, I'm sharing way less beer than I normally do this year.
Yeah, I have the same. I said
just,
the
you
other
know,
night, we need to drink.
I have to target my brewing.
I'm so sick of my own beer right now.
you guys can send me
Well,
all your beer. I mean,
Yeah, maybe we're having this discussion a little backwards, because initially, so after this, I'm hoping to talk about a homebrew share, because I loved Nancy's suggestion of a library, but a library is what I'm thinking.
Yeah, Liberia, you know.
So maybe we want to have this we definitely want to have this conversation about how we can, you know, safely share homebrew on anyone's schedule, instead of, hey, are you home right now? Yeah, well, no, I'll be here until 2, but I work until 5, you know, kind of thing. So I'm hoping we can work out a situation where we have a lockbox and people share a combination.
It's
because
great.
I love that idea.
Yeah, we've been
Love
doing
that
it
idea.
for a while. It's great.
Yeah.
Especially now, because people make beer, and you know, it's not like you're getting together with all your friends and drinking it, you know? I mean,
Yeah.
Sean, I feel your pain.
Yeah, and Hans, I'll get to you next, but Theo had said at one point, he said, hey, if you want to be handing off homebrews to other homebrewers and like you want to use me as a drop-off location, like let me know. So, but he has limited hours. Like, let me just put that out front. He has volunteered himself to be an exchange point, but
But
I
it
mean,
is open Saturday and Sunday from 2 to 7.
yeah. So I'm just putting that out there. But let's not get away from the conversation. Hans, you're next. Christina, you're after Hans.
I was going to offer up a spot on our property where I basically set up a cold box with a lock combo, and you just put your name and a 6-pack or whatever the hell you want to put in there, and just say, hey, I'm putting this in here for the group. Come by and pick it up.
Yeah.
If
So
you take a beer, you give a beer.
Yeah.
So how Nancy, so you were saying that one of the clubs in Oregon had actually done this before.
Yeah.
How did they deal with temperature? You know, like for a lot of us, I feel like, you know, we want our beers to stay cool, you know,
Right.
not necessarily like get warm in the sun. how did that club deal with that? Do you know?
Well, it was at somebody's house and with ice, and it's hot there. It gets hot, a lot
Yeah.
hotter there. You know, which we could all contribute to, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I got
I
garage.
mean, you know, we're not dealing with 100 degrees here.
No. Yeah. So, I mean, even in the shade here with an ice pack switched out per day is going to keep things like under 40 degrees.
Mhm.
Does anyone have any issue with beer creeping into the 40-degree range? Just out of curiosity. Kenny, Sean, Pete, Matt. Kenny's going.
Depends on the beer, but it, you know, on a homebrew level, dude, especially right now, we're all in a scattered position where we're worried about health and everything else. So if it stays on the porch an extra 20 minutes, I'm not really too concerned.
Cool. Okay. So, how do people feel about a Eureka and a McKinleyville location? I feel like, so Sean, where are you located? You're in Arcata, Matt's in Eureka, Pete's in Arcata, Ben, you're in Eureka, Chrissy, where are you? Eureka? Okay, so then it's Kenny, Sean, myself, and Pete who are not in Eureka. Well,
Arcata?
I'm sorry, Caitlin. Yeah, and Caitlin. I'm so sorry.
I also have a big ass fridge, FYI, like a really big fridge. Like I have,
Yes, but is it accessible when you're not there?
well, there's always somebody here.
Yeah, I
We're
know.
locked-
That's kind of
we're
how
locked down.
I feel about it too, you know. But I now have a big piece of property with a gravel driveway and an open fence. So I feel like me building a cooler box with a lock combination is definitely in the realm of possibility. So if we were to have 2 drop-off locations, Hans, do you work in Arcata or are you working from home?
I work in Eureka.
Oh, you work in Eureka. Oh,
Work
county,
in
the county. Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
Dewey.
County boy.
Dewey. Okay, I'm just trying to figure out how we can, you know, if we want to have it split or if we want to have it in one central location, you know, how do y'all feel about that?
I mean, doing it in Arcata wasn't necessarily a bad idea at Theo's too.
Yeah, I think might be a good idea.
That could
Yeah,
kind
yeah.
of
Take
draw
advantage of Theo's.
and support him.
Bring business into him, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would have to approach Theo and, you know, find out, you know, what the volume of sharing we're hoping to do, you know, because
it makes sense to start out with one,
Mhm.
and once it's rolling, then we might add one, or we might add 2.
Yeah,
Okay.
you know, and you know and like I said, you know, Arcata seems somewhat central-ish. if
Yeah,
I'm
for
not
sure.
mistaken. And so, you know, worst case scenario, I also could just like, you know, have a cooler here and nobody needs to come in or ring the doorbell or anything. Like people are going to be here. That's kind of how it is right now.
If it was
Well,
done.
right now it's on this
Hold
one.
on. All right, Hans first and then Nancy.
Oh, okay. Go
I was
ahead.
gonna say, I'd probably just set up a fridge outside that's accessible with a lock combo that we all know. I'd buy one on Craigslist for $50 or something like that. So that's what I would do here.
That's awesome.
Awesome. Yeah.
I just never go to Arcata ever.
I never go to
especially now.
Eureka ever. So
Well, now you never
You
use
go to
it for
Dead
a
Reckoning.
year.
I haven't left my house for a while.
Couldn't
This
we
is
all
why
use an
Arcata's
excuse to go
central.
somewhere?
I'll be
I know
here.
it.
Give me a reason to go somewhere. That's all I'm saying. If we have it in Crescent
Dead
City, I'll go
Reckoning's got
there.
hundreds of
I don't
reasons.
mind going to McKinleyville.
Now there's a chance if you come by on a weekend, I might be smoking something.
Not
Meat,
that.
meat,
Like
meat.
meat or
Everybody's smoking something these days,
Yeah, you just go outside
All
and go
right.
smoking something.
especially in Eureka.
All right, guys. So it sounds like we're going to start by approaching Theo and seeing if the offer still stands. And at that point, we will, you know, assess from there. If he's like, hey, yeah, sure, like bring cases of beer, you know, like whatever, man, you know, like Theo typically is, then we'll stick to that. If he says, like I don't really have a whole lot of fridge space or something like that, then we'll approach Sean, because Sean is Arcata. And then from there, if that works out and Sean's like a good central location, then
I'm
we'll go
available
from
at
there.
least as much as he is.
Yeah. So then from there, if we feel like going to Arcata is too much, then we can split it between Arcata and Eureka. How does that sound, everyone?
Yeah, I think that sounds good.
It's
could-
really fun. It's a great idea. It really is.
Yeah, it's kind of like geocaching, but you get beer. And you know where the location is.
I could also see somebody being potentially willing to just do like a beer run, and like go, like say like me, maybe I'm willing to go to Arcata or McKinleyville, and like I could get Eureka folks some stuff and get their stuff, and
I would do that.
any of that kind of stuff could work.
Okay.
All that
So
organizing.
just out of curiosity, who in here has beer to share currently? I'm just curious. I have not brewed in like 2 months now, but I'm brewing this weekend. Wait, okay, hold those hands up again. Who has beer to share? 1, 2, 3.
I have to try it.
Good,
4.
good beer or
Chrissy, your strange brew beer? Is that it?
At least.
That's phenomenal. I loved your strange brew beer. I freaking love that. I hope you share it.
Well, I've got that for sure.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We got at least 6 people here ish. So
Take it.
I think we need to make this a reality. How do you all want me to update you on this? Email or Facebook page?
Email.
Okay. This will be an email chain with the individuals who are interested, not through the whole giant mailing list. How do you all feel about that? Does anyone object to just being, current members only? Okay. So the email will be going out to all current paid members. Currently paid members for homebrew sharing, and
Getting people engaged.
Yeah, so I think we should bring it up on the Facebook page. Like, hey, if you're a current member, look for the email regarding our homebrew share and what we've got planned for that. How do y'all feel about that? Just as kind of like dropping a hint to the people who are not members. Kenny.
I was just gonna say, make sure to make a Facebook event and follow up with the PR director. I think it's gonna be a great idea, man. And if we can follow through and kind of share what we've been doing, it's gonna be great. Everybody's gonna love everybody's beer, or not.
Yeah.
But they'll be polite about it.
Well, the point is we're having interaction. We're engaging the club members. How else at this point in time are we going to do this safely? I think this is going to be a really good way, especially if it's only to paid club members, and if it's in a safe environment where it can just be a quick exchange or a combination lock, go for it. I think it's a great idea, guys, and I'm all for it. I've got a few that I can donate to.
The other thing is sometimes people, sometimes grocery outlet every now and then they'll have like great beer, and I'll get a case, it's like this really great beer for nothing. I always check. And anyway, and people put commercial beer in there. People win a case of beer, they'll put some beers in. So you can also use commercial beers on this too.
We've done that traditionally with our meeting raffle, and maybe there's a way to expand that. I think that's what you're suggesting.
Just or if you have you have a case of beer that you bought because, well, for whatever you won, and you want to give a few away, stick them in the box. It doesn't all have to be homebrew. It just has to be beer. Yeah, that's what we've been doing up in Bend, and it's great.
So I could stick all those lime hard waters that we don't want out of the mix case in there. That's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, hey, it's a beer trade. I don't know that anyone is really opposed to that. Is anybody opposed to putting commercial beers in there?
No, I'm not.
No, I don't see any. Chrissy.
I feel like I might be missing something really obvious. So sorry. But you have to bring one to take one, right? Like, how do we regulate that it's not just wiped out every time and we just keep donating and never get.
You think
especially if we're driving to Arcata to find an empty fridge. Like,
No.
Maybe we can do
if you
a beer
contribute
check.
a beer, you get a beer. You get one of everybody else's and
how do we
yours.
regulate that?
I mean,
who's
the shithead here is my question.
I just don't want to have an empty fridge when I don't know. I'm just.
I know.
Oh no, it's like a chain. It's like a chain ladder.
Yeah, I got suckered into that. Nobody sent me wine, right? I suckered into that.
I think the discussion of regulation should be in a separate point in time with the officers so that they can figure it out.
I was just curious.
Yeah. It's a very valid point, but it's also like after 9 o'clock, right? How long is the meeting going? I'm hanging out, but what about you guys?
Obviously, the first person is not going to be able to exchange.
You know what? I don't think it's an issue. People, I mean, you know, for the greater good, let's try to be positive. There's enough not positive. People are going to bring a beer and take a beer. So far, so good.
Yeah, I don't know that it will be an issue.
I don't think it will be.
Well, especially if we have a situation where there's like a drop-off thing, that will be a totally non-issue. And the other is, it's easy to keep a list. It's not that hard, and our club's not big enough for it to be. And we've never once had anybody pull shenanigans.
We're not leaving it on 2nd Street in Eureka. I mean.
Anyway, all right. So this conversation has basically come to a good resolution where we've got steps that I will be taking to reach out to Theo and then Sean and then Eureka, and Christina. All right. So back to the actual homebrewing. The actual homebrewing of this. The packages that we want to distribute to homebrewers. Hans. So we had talked previously about doing just the base 2-row purchased by the club or specialty grains. And we had talked about like, well, how much would specialty grains be? You know, if they're $2 a pound and we're doing, 2 pounds per recipe, say we've got 8 people at $2 a pound and 2 pounds. So that's $4 a person, 4, 8, 16, 30, so it's like $50 in specialty grains. Or would we rather leave it very wide open and just give out hops and base malt? How do people feel about so between base malt or specialty grains, which would you rather have? Put your hand up if you would rather have base malt, or give me a thumbs down if you would rather have specialty malts. All right.
That's a difficult question because everybody brews differently.
I think if you
everyone
get the
does brew
specialty
differently.
malt, that leaves it open to extract brewers to not be trying to do an all grain batch.
That's a good point.
Not everybody does all grain.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, we are well aware of it.
So what if we just did specialty malts and some hops?
Or yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I would say that it's probably a little more even for everybody's brewing style to give the specialty stuff, and then let them pick their base goo.
Yeah. So this is pretty much the resolution that we came to during our officers meeting, is that to make it more open to every style of brewing, that we wanted to do specialty malts, but instead of doing multiple different specialty malts, we'd rather just do all one specialty malt, to keep it simple. So we could buy a 50 or 55 pound bag of specialty malt and everyone gets 2 to 4 pounds of that specialty malt. You know, and that's the specialty malt that you're required to brew with.
That seems like a lot.
Fleet. I'm sorry, Sean. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that seems like a lot, depending on what it is.
Well, it does seem like a lot. Yeah. I mean, I'm just throwing out an example. It's not necessarily. Yeah. Guess what? You're all brewing with 8 pounds of Special B. You know, and that is subject to availability as well. All right, Kenny, go ahead.
Okay. So first, need to figure out: are you talking about specialty malt as a base malt, or are you talking about a specialty malt as like Carafa 3, and you want to buy a 55-pound sack of Carafa 3? Availability could be an issue. My suggestion would be try to figure out, are you doing a single specialty malt? Like, are you doing a like Caramel 60, for example? Or is it going to be the recipe base? Is it going to be more complex? I know in the past it's been like a sack of 2-row for the PAL camp, and then maybe some specialty malts here and there. I don't remember what you got last year, Chris. I think it was like some caramel malts or something like that. But, you know, try to figure out what it is and figure out how many people are doing it, and then just multiply the recipe accordingly. It should be pretty easy. And I have
should be pretty easy. What do you think we're doing here, Kenny?
Well,
out of my curiosity, yes, these are what we are discussing. Yes, Kenny, that's what we're discussing right now.
What I'm saying is, moving forward, because there's a lot of discussion, you can't buy a 55-pound sack of Carafa 3 for 12 people. That seems pretty ridiculous.
Yeah.
So the question is, what type of recipe? If you're doing specialty malts, it's generally going to be like, you know, 1%, 0.5% up to 5% of the grain bill. So figure out what you're going to do for the base malt, and then or figure that out from there. But buying a 55-pound sack of Carafa 3 is kind of.
Oh yeah, that's definitely ridiculous. What's up, Hans?
Well, it seems like our club could just buy it by the pound. It's not that much, right?
No, it's not. No, that's totally fine. Yeah.
I think I might suggest that we find out how many people actually want to do this. And once we know how many people want to do this, it's going to be a surprise bag. You're not going to find out until you get the bag. That's what you got to brew with, and that's it. Once we know who wants to do it, we'll give out a date saying, okay, we got 7 people interested. On this date, come by such and such place to pick up your bag, and you've got 2 months or 3 months or whatever it is to finish your beer.
And part of it's dried crickets. Good luck, buddy.
All right, so I guess my question to pose to everyone now is, would you rather it be like a crystal malt, or would you rather it be an aromatic flavoring malt?
I say just make it a surprise.
Chrissy, what are you more familiar with steeping grains? What steeping grains have you used before? I'm just curious, you know, from your perspective, like what have you used for steeping grains? Because it has been years since I've done steeping grains in a batch. You're muted, by the way, Chrissy.
You're muted.
I don't know if you're talking to your cat.
You know what? I steep all my dark grains. I cold steep them like over.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm more referencing like extract batches, you know,
okay.
where the only grains you're using are your steeping grains.
Are your steeping grains? Okay.
Yeah, because previously when I had done extract batches, it had been, you know, a Carafa and a C60 or a C80, you know, to bring some more depth to that recipe.
Mostly crystal for me.
Mostly crystal.
So even if it's a surprise, they'll all be like labeled, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll know what it is.
No, we're just gonna mix a bunch of shit together.
Sorry, ask another question. Just curious.
Okay. Cool.
With extract, I regularly use crystal. I've used honey regularly last few years.
Yeah.
Cool.
In Vienna can make a decent steeping grain.
That's a base malt.
I use
Yeah,
it as
it is, but you know.
yeah.
Hey, Chris.
Kenny. Yeah.
Honey's a good one.
Why don't you just take a random assortment of grains and put them through that random winner generator that you just used?
Well,
then
I mean,
that's what-
I'm trying to
that's what
gauge,
people get.
you know. Yeah, let's see what you get. All right. Well, let's do that. No, all right, everyone, throw out
So
some
they're all
steeping
tasty.
grains.
They got to be all tasty.
That brought up.
That's their tasty.
Honey malt.
C60, we got
Special B.
Special B. Keep going, people.
Lapsang
See-
Shushan.
C120. Victory. All right. Keep going.
Golden Promise.
Golden Promise? I've never steeped with Golden Promise. Have you?
Yeah,
Okay.
I like it. I've used it.
Munich. Hey, Kenny. Munich. It's Munich 1 and Munich 2. Are those the like two Munich types, or what do you typically have on hand for the Munichs?
Currently, they changed the naming of it, the nomenclature. So it was originally like Munich Light and Munich Dark, but now it's Type 1 and Type 2. But currently at the shop, I think it's Wireman, Munich Type 1 and Type 2. I can't remember for certain, but I think there's the website. I've been trying to update it as best I can. So.
Cool. All right. Any other steeping grains? Anyone?
Naked oat malt.
Naked oats. Naked oats. All right. What are some of the dark malts?
Chocolate.
Chocolate. Yeah. How do y'all feel about chocolate malt? Chocolate. All right.
Pale chocolate or dark chocolate?
Yes.
Ooh, pale chocolate. That's a good one. I've never brewed with pale chocolate before. Any other ideas?
Hold on.
All right, let's see. I'm
If-
just gonna
if
go on
there-
our local purveyors.
Yeah, I'm looking at some of the recipes.
I can tell you that if there is something that is not on the list that people are looking for, that local purveyor. Oh man, is for the
Perverter. I think it's
well,
perverter.
you know. More than willing to make any special orders as far as different grains and stuff. You know, it's just one of those things you can only carry so much for so long.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. All right. I think, okay, so let's see. We have 12 options here. Let me show you. Let me share my screen. All right, 12 options. We have C60, Special B, C120, Victory, C80, Golden Promise, Munich 1, Munich 2, Naked Oats, Chocolate, Pale Chocolate, or Honey Malt. Any last additions before the random number generator?
Perverter. No.
Going once?
Never mind.
Going twice?
No.
All right. Random number generator. Here we go. 1 through 12.
No
Ready?
whammies, no whammies, no whammies.
Ready.
10. Oh man, what is this going to be? 10. Chocolate malt.
Ooh.
All right. Now, Kenny, off the top of your brain, how much chocolate malt do you think you have? Do you think you have 10 pounds of chocolate malt?
I have sacks of chocolate malt, Chris.
Yes. All right. Woohoo! All right, everyone. So it is settled. It is settled.
we're recording that, so I can save that as a clip, right? I got sacks of chocolate malt.
These two giant sacks.
Good. I need to make. I must make porter for the holidays. Whatever.
They're
And I think it's pretty
55
fitting.
pound sacks. It's fine.
I think it's pretty fitting.
Yeah, but it's the Viking chocolate malt. So that I think that's what's at the shop currently.
Okay.
But for anything else, contact me offline.
Sweet,
We're
will
all
do.
gravy in the Navy.
Sweet.
Well,
Alrighty.
for hops.
So now, okay, how much do we want to give people? You know, like a pound of.
We gotta wait till we know how many people are gonna get involved. I mean,
Let's just ballpark it. Let's
if
just
we got 10
ballpark it.
people, 2 pounds each.
As much as they can take.
That's a lot.
Okay, so 2 pounds of chocolate malt. Holy crap! Let me just look at some of my recipes. Chrissy, can you look at a recipe of yours and see if you have any with chocolate malt in?
Yeah,
super
there's
grain?
3/4 pound in my porter recipe right here.
Okay,
My
so
tried and true. That's for 5 gallons. 3/4
Okay.
pound.
So maybe 2 pounds might be an okay amount to give to people.
1
I think
pound.
it's enough for sure.
1 pound, 1.5. You know, to be generous.
If we do 1.5, that gives them the option of making it thicker.
Yeah. I mean, you don't necessarily have to use all of it.
No.
Some of us brew 10-gallon batches.
Yeah,
That's
a lot of us brew 10-gallon batches. So
So,
let's.
Just stick with
Okay.
2.
2.
2 pounds.
All right.
2 pounds.
2 pounds. All right. 2 pounds of Viking chocolate per person. Now we are going to blast it out via email to the active members and on Facebook saying, if you are active and you have paid your dues, let us know if you would like to be a participant in the brew.
Yeah. What do we want to do for hops, Chris?
What we want to do for hops, I'll dig through my freezer and see what I've got. I probably have Pearl and Summit, and those are both perfectly fine for a darker beer.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll put that all together in bags.
So, Chris, are you saying that basically you have some spare hops that donate to this effort?
They are donated hops in the first place that I have been holding on to vacuum sealed. So yes, they will be donated to this effort, and you will get what you get, and you know the rest of the thing. Alrighty, well, that is it. We have our Monday happy hour coming up on the 12th. So not next week, the week after. Right smack dab in the middle of the month, Monday, October 12th from 7 to 8 p.m. is our happy hour. Come with a beverage, come with whatever you want. It's just a hang out and drink a beer and chat with people at the time, no agenda, just open meeting. Sometimes if I'm not in there on time, the meeting will be open and I'll just have a little like neon sign saying happy hour. That's probably because I'm eating dinner.
How's that gone so far? I'm just like a little curious.
We've had, last week it was Kenny and I, or last month it was Kenny and I. The month before that it was, I think Ben popped in for a hot second and then left before any of us could, get behind our keyboard and say hi. And then the month before that it was like 3 people. Yeah, so usually it's like 3 or 4 people.
5-gallon batch of I just recently made. I used a pound of chocolate malt
For 5 gallons.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think two will cover the people who want to go, a little more into the chocolate territory for the 5 gallon, and also to cover the people who want to do a 10-gallon batch. Cool. Alrighty. Well, unless that is it, that is it. Thank you all for coming and enduring this grueling long meeting. I'm sure some of our partners are like, what the hell have you been doing for the last hour, 2 hours? I'm sure my wife is like, you need to get the hell in here and get to bedtime, Yeah. All right. Well,
Really
I love seeing all of you. What was that? What was that?
Really cool having Jeff.
Yeah, I loved having Jeff in here. Yeah, I really like that.
Awesome.
I'll have to rewatch this a couple times with Jeff just to get all the information that he just had pouring out.
Yeah.
Oh my God. And I could tell that he was having to restrain himself from just like, keeping going and going and going. And I told him from the get-go, like last week, he texted me, he's like, so what are we going to be, talking about and stuff? And I was like, Jeff, you have no problem talking. I think you're going to have to restrain yourself from just like talking for 2 hours, because I know how our conversations go sometimes. So yeah, it was a wealth of knowledge.
Hey, so this is something I wanted to say is like these sessions like this are like really meaningful, and it's something I've wanted to see for a long time. We've only had it happen a few times where we've had somebody come and do an educational thing during our meeting, and I want to see more of that. And so this is really exciting that it's happened a couple times, especially with pros. It doesn't have to be pros. Anyway, I want to see more of this. This is really great. And but it makes me also wonder if and this might be an officer's topic, but I just want to throw it out there. If there is a program director position, somebody who, and this is based on what I know of my parents specifically, and other people I know who are in like Rotary and other groups, where they have a program director who lines up the program for that meeting, and that's all they do, and not all the rest of the stuff. So I know
technically it's part of the
president, and maybe that's it.
Yeah, so it's actually in Pete's job description for Cellar Master for them to line up educational material, because it used to be called the Brewfester. But I mean, we're working on it, slowly but surely. But sorry, I really have to go. Sorry to cut it off, but love you all. Love to see you. Kenny, I will be reaching out to you in the next, probably, so you're off Monday, Tuesday?
I'm never off work, my friend.
Okay. So I'll be reaching out to you likely this weekend or next week sometime, so we can get our ducks in a row and reach out to you. And officers, all y'all officers, check the Facebook page this weekend, okay? Because I'll be starting a discussion hopefully tomorrow, and I'm hoping for it to conclude by this weekend, so we have decisions made. Awesome. All right. Good to see you.
All right. Good to see everybody.
Bye-bye.
Nighty night.
All right, peace.